Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 3 of the Early Years Learning Lab podcast presented by Mini Monstars. Coach Shane is back with another guest. Katie, how are we going?
Good, thanks, Shane. How are you?
Oh, I'm good, thank you. Thanks so much for coming on. We're kind of getting rolling now. The first couple of guests, it's always hard to get people on and, try to build the audience and that sort of stuff. But I think the first couple of guests have provided real value, and I guess what you do and what we spoke about before. I know this is going to be a great episode and a great learnings for the teachers, directors, and hopefully anyone else who's kind of listening. So do you want to kind of give a little, spiel, a little background of what you're doing and I know you've got a new role, so where you're heading. So
I've worked for my company for 13 years. So I've gone from being an assistant educator, also helped with the cooking, also done cleaning at times as my roles, and gone all the way through to a centre manager before stepping into our around centre support team as a practice coach. So really looking at programming practice, the relationships with children and setting up our environments. And then I've gone into supporting our early childhood teachers by creating an induction program for them. So just looking at giving that support during the early stages. Because quite often they can feel quite isolated as a teacher. So it's just about giving that connection piece.
For sure, I guess and that's probably a good place to start is for the new, educators and people that are new to centres and new to the, experience of teaching kids and running a classroom and all that. What do you find, and what did you kind of, when you first sat down for that role, what was kind of the first couple of things you thought, okay, this is what they need? Were you like, this is what I felt like when I came back in, or was it more talking to people and trying to fill the gaps there?
Yeah, so just really trying to fill those gaps, understand from their perspective what it was that they were needing. So I had how I felt as a teacher. I was lucky because I progressed up in my roles, whereas a lot of these are coming straight from university, so have never potentially worked as a teacher before. So it's all brand new for them. So it's just really being focused on building that confidence. We know that teachers know what they're doing. They've done a 3 or 4 year degree. So we're not giving them anything that they don't know. But a lot of it is just reaffirming that they do know their job and that they're going to be amazing at it. And just giving them a little bit more context, I guess, as to how we approach situations in our organisation. So,
I think that's great. And I think that would, for someone who's new to that role, having that sort of support. Have there been any research, or have you found through the company G8 and that sort of stuff, has that helped with staff retention and, educators and teachers, lasting longer because they're getting that support rather than feeling a bit, as you said, isolated and kind of like, oh, this is too hard and leaving? Have they found that, and you found that during the role?
Yeah, so we both sides to that. We know there's evidence and research that shows that giving that support early on has a lasting impact and can improve that retention rate. So, and now we're seeing that in the program that, we're sitting above 80% in our retention, which is amazing. So really good to see that change happening and getting the feedback from the teachers as well as to how that feels.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess what are some, if we dive deeper into that, what are some of the points and what are some of the things that we're talking to the teachers about that are, if maybe a new educator who isn't going with one of these bigger, like your G8s and your Good Starts and all that sort of stuff, who might be going into a smaller company or a smaller centre that doesn't have that support, if they're listening, what are some things that they could, you could bring value to them and they could kind of learn from this?
So a lot of what we've talked about has been about what that transition to school actually should look like. So rather than the forcing a formalized kind of learning on children at 4 to 5 years old, what we should be working on with them. Another big piece that we're really focusing on at the moment is really supporting the understanding of supporting children with complex needs or just challenging behaviour, because we're seeing it more and more. We all keep calling it out as sort of an impact now from COVID. There's a lot of children now that are 3 to 5 that haven't had the same social experience as other children growing up. They've been a lot more restricted being in a childcare. So their skills are slightly, lower than what we would have seen previously. And it's just really giving them the support to understand that we need to understand why a child may be behaving the way they are rather than just seeing their behavior and labeling them. So
Yeah.
that's sort of like our big concentration is on that, like how they can support a child. We also know that in their studies, a lot of their placements are in a school, like very minimal is done in early childhood. So it's also switching that thinking from what they've practically learned to bring it back to they're still under the age of 5. We can't have the same expectations,
No, for sure.
Things are very different. So it's just really supporting them to understand what that could look like. So, yeah.
And I guess it's such a, especially like, I guess it would be roughly that those 3 to 5 year olds, 2 to 5, is they're coming from COVID, and it was such a crazy thing, such a new thing. So everything that the kids, I guess, that we're seeing come through that, it's going to be new to everyone, not just not just new educators and new teachers, but it's all everyone. It was such a crazy experience that we went through, and it was so different. So are you seeing that with not just the new teachers, like the established ones as well?
Yeah, I was having a conversation with my old team a while ago, and we were saying, you've been doing it for years, you know what you're doing, but it's somehow different.
Yeah,
there's just something that's different. Like, yes, we've got all the skills and the knowledge from doing it.
Yeah.
But it's still different. Like we're having to learn new ways of approaching things because things are different. So
for sure, it's such a yeah. And that's the thing I think about, like childcare and that sort of stuff. And it's that obviously that you're learning and teaching and educating and stuff like that, but the social aspect that the children are like that they're getting with like different kids and learning how to work together, teamwork, play together, all that sort of stuff. That was taken away from a lot of children at a young age, where it could potentially be so important to learn that sort of thing. So yeah, I could imagine it'd be like super tricky, and it'd be a delicate line to walk.
Yeah. And I think the other big thing we see is talking about the transitions and routines for children through the day as well. So, trying to move 20 to 30 children into one space just is problematic. It doesn't work. So finding our ways around that now that you don't have to be all together all the time, like having more an open door policy where children can flow between environments works so much better for them and for us.
For sure.
I think it's really an interesting space to see how everyone's doing that.
Yeah, definitely. And then, so that was awesome. And I guess stepping into your new role. So what's that going to entail, and and obviously you haven't done it yet, but well, you're obviously excited, and what's that all about?
Yeah. So just an opportunity to further my skills in and knowledge in sharing that, and creating online content as well. So that is accessible for all early childhood educators and teachers, if they're a member of ECA, or they can just request access to those learning modules online. But yeah, helping create content for that. So really excited.
Yeah, awesome. And so how, like, obviously you've been in the field for so long, and you've seen a lot of different educator stuff. How important is it for educators to do things like extra study, extra learning, PD days, all that sort of stuff? How important have you found that to be?
So I'm a committed learner myself. So I'm currently studying a master's degree as well. So I'm really into that, just continuing to further our knowledge. Even if you know it, you've been working in the sector for years, there's always something new to learn. Or even if it's not new, it just reaffirms that you are doing the right things. So, and whether it's as a group going to a PD or just that online learning, there's always the opportunity to share your knowledge too. And I think those are the key parts in a PD day or a session, is that you get those conversations happening where you can support someone to learn something they don't know, especially if they're new to the sector, but that person as well can also mentor and encourage new learning for that person that's been in the sector for 20 plus years, because they're bringing that new current knowledge with them. So
yeah,
I think
for
that's
sure.
the nice part, is that conversational piece during PDs.
Yeah, and I guess that's why it's so important. I mean, would you like how, like when you see, I guess, like when you're speaking to directors and that sort of thing of centers, do you need to kind of push that sort of thing? Like, and obviously like for centers that aren't as big, like how important would you say, how often should these PD days being run as like a group, and then how often should you go off site and do it? Like, is there any data, or like how, like what are you seeing there?
I haven't seen any data on that. And I think it very much depends on where the centre's at as to what their needs are. So if it's a brand new centre with, you know, a lot of new staff or new educators that haven't worked in the sector before, they're going to need that really group support training. Whereas you might have a very well-established team that have been at the same centre for years that know their stuff. They're just wanting to explore and develop themselves further as individuals. So I think it's just working in what works for the centre and the team that way. We know it's pretty challenging at the moment. So trying to get people out is really hard. So trying to get a whole team out is near impossible.
Yeah, for sure.
And then it's doing it outside of hours, but then everyone's burnt out. People aren't wanting to commit extra time at the moment because they're so tired. So
yeah, for sure.
I think the online learning has definitely grown
and helped.
Because it's easily accessible. It doesn't require the travel. You can click on it at any time, especially if it's pre-recorded. Or even sessions that aren't, you generally get a copy of the session afterwards. So if you miss it, you can always watch it in your own time. So I think that's definitely broadened our ability to continue to learn. And you just got to have that commitment that learning has to be a part of what we do as educators.
Oh, for sure, for sure. I was talking to someone, and I was just saying, it's funny when you first start something and you kind of get into it for a little bit, you're like, oh, I know lots about this. This is easy stuff. This is I don't need it. But then the more you you're in it, and the more you kind of look at it and research it and think about it, you're like, and then 10 years goes by, you go, I still know nothing of it. You know what I mean? Like the further you go down the rabbit hole, and the more you learn and the more you know about a certain field, it's kind of like, oh, there's still so much to learn as you kind of progress through it.
Yeah, even in my roles that I've been in recently, I've had conversations with teachers and I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't know that. Like, I've just learned something from you and I'm supposed to be like, you know, leading and supporting you. You've just taught me. But then I'm like, I really draw the attention to that because I think that's really important for them to think just because you're in a leadership role doesn't mean you know everything.
Oh, for sure. And being open to learn and like to grow. Like if you've got a growth sort of mindset like yourself, I feel like that sort of stuff when you see when someone says something and you're like, oh, that actually, like I'm gonna apply that to what I know and see how it goes. I feel like, and then you giving that feedback saying, oh, I didn't know that, thanks for that. I feel like that would just make them feel so good.
Yeah, and a lot of it has helped us progress these sessions for teachers as well, because I can then draw on that experience for the next time to be like, well, this person taught me this, so maybe you'd like to try that. So it really is that flow on effect of learning. So
yeah, for sure. I've because what we go into do like sports, music, yoga, like that sort of stuff at the centers, and I've been teaching kids for probably 14, 15 years, coaching sport. And it was probably a time when I was a little bit younger. I was like, I'm a good, like, I know enough as I need to know about coaching. Like, but then obviously got a little bit older, a bit more wiser. There's just always little subtleties that you pick up and you learn. Like, why wasn't I doing that back then? Or like, why? You know what I mean? You kind of like, as you kind of get a little bit older, you kind of look back and I could have done this a little bit different with that group. I could have connected with these kids a bit better, and you kind of you grow a bit, because especially during a sports program, it's such high energy. You're having fun, you're learning motor skills, you're running, you're balancing. But being able to, what I've like recently been able to slow it down and connect with the kids and just having a bit more awareness has really helped my coaching. So it's definitely like not just like what you kind of do, it's like kind of what everyone does. Yeah. And I guess a good one would be, I think, how you've kind of progressed in the field. We might go back to, I want to kind of touch on a bit more of the like online learnings, but first maybe can we touch on like for educators and, you know, people new, obviously to the field, it's going to take time, but how does an educator put themselves in a position, or how did you put yourself in a position to grow? You know, you started off, as you said, you were doing the teaching, then you were doing the cooking, then you were doing assistant manager. How does someone put themselves into that position to keep growing and to keep, you know, progressing their skills and knowledge and getting that growth?
I'm a bit of a yes person. So always say yes and kind of put myself out to do stuff. So if there was anything I could be doing, even when I wasn't in those roles yet, was the chance to be like, but I can help do that. Like, I want to learn, show me how to do it. Like, just having that interest. And I think it really came down to who I was working with. So who my leaders were at that time were on board with that. We had the relationship where it wasn't seen as me trying to push them out. They saw it as definitely an opportunity to have a succession plan in place, that they knew where they wanted to go long term. Someone else needed to then flow on behind them. So it was a really good opportunity for them to coach me and prepare me in time for that, rather than suddenly it being, well, the role's there, but you don't have the skills.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, the skills were being developed as we went. So I felt very lucky to work at a centre where we were all like predominantly diploma qualified team. And we really built on each other to lift everyone up, so that if anyone was to ever leave or on extended holidays, the wheel didn't fall off. So the lead educator role, the director could go on leave and it would be fine because we could all step up and help. Things like that. I think saying yes, like, you don't want to overburden yourself, but for me, it was just that drive to keep learning. Like, I knew that I didn't want to stay doing what I was doing. I wanted to do more. I wanted to have a bigger influence. So I think just finding those opportunities when you can is definitely the way to go.
For sure. That's a great insight, I guess, for any sort of like directors and centers and that sort of stuff, to have that, I guess, thought process in mind, whereas we can always have someone kind of who's ready to go. So if someone's kind of, you know, the educator is, you know, having every so often, like having a chat with the ed leader and seeing what they're doing and how they do it and that sort of stuff. And then the ed leader might be talking to I'm not sure what's next in line after that, maybe like the 2IC or the whatever it is, so that if eventually the director or someone does take the role, you can slot, as you said, slot someone in, and it seems rather seamless rather than, you know, it's been a bit clunky. Oh, we're just waiting for this, or we're waiting to hire this person or whatever it is. It keeps the ball rolling. Is that kind of how you think of it?
Yeah, definitely. I think just knowing that, I think we had a leader once that was like, you should never know that someone, like, obviously, you know, someone's on leave, but you shouldn't notice they're on leave because nothing should really change. And I think that's where we got to as a centre, is that people could leave and we knew that the next person could pick it up really quickly, because they knew it back and forth. Like, yes, people had the titles as leaders, but really it came down to being a team.
Yeah, for sure. And I feel like that would be the kind of the best way to kind of run a team. Obviously, there's people who are like your directors, 2ICs, that sort of stuff. But if everyone's got a say and everyone kind of has the knowledge, the team, if you're put in a position where, you know, you have insight into what you're doing, I feel like as an educator, you'd be like a bit more pumped or excited to hey, look, I had my 2 cents in there. How good's this? We're doing what like you're kind of bringing your, you know, I mean, it gets a bit more buy-in from someone.
Yeah. We even got to the point where we knew that we had an educator that was amazing at doing a tour with a new family. Like, potentially every tour she did, we got them into the centre. So she kind of became our person that we'd be like, you're doing the tour. Put it down packed. She really had that connection piece to bring them into the centre.
For sure.
And other people are really good at the rostering side. So it was like, okay, we need to get this roster sorted. They could get it fixed within minutes. So I think it's drawing on the strengths as individuals. For
sure. And that's actually a great point. Like, finding, I guess, people's strengths that they have and utilizing your team's strengths. So as you said, if there is centers out there that are, you know, maybe struggling to convert those, I don't know if convert's the right word, but you know, you're getting people coming through the door, and hopefully you're getting the kid to come into the center, but maybe that experience for the parents and the families was a bit clunky, or you know, it wasn't as good. But if you have someone who is, you know, super friendly, people person, you know, knows that could be something where you say, hey, let's work on this, build that up, so that, you know, hopefully we get more retention of the children that are coming through. And then obviously there's different ones, maybe I'm sure you would know, but yeah, as you said, like someone's really good at managing, or like really good at, I'm not sure, what would be a couple of other
our like sustainability side. Like we were like, we want to work on our sustainability as a centre, but where do we start? And there was one educator, she lives and breathes it. So it was like, it's yours, make it happen. Like, tell us what to be doing and we'll action it. So she sort of led that. What else do we have? We just kind of, like, he never had an official title, but it was like, okay, they're the person that knows how to do all that. So you just started relying on people to direct and lead those situations. So even creating, like, we wanted to do certain events through the year that were meaningful to us as a centre. So they created the plan for the year and made sure that they were put up around the centre to let families know it was happening. So, you know, it's those things where you plan to do it, but then never actually get the time to do it. But that person, it was their commitment that they were in charge of that.
Yeah. And they liked it as well, which was one of their things they really like wanted to do. And I think that's a great insight for centers and that sort of stuff, to have that sort of, that kind of people doing what they love, and it kind of all, you know, your team is all kind of, someone's really, you know, loves physical activity, so they're doing that with the kids. Someone's like a musician, they might, you know, get the guitar out, play to the kids, or whatever it is, and it kind of builds that team together, and then you kind of got a full center that's kind of just running in cohesion.
Yeah, definitely. We had a person that was a dance teacher as well, so she was able to do dancing with the children. We kind of made it part of an in-house program. We had another educator that had been a hairdresser, so we began offering, you know, haircuts once a month. So awesome. Families in on those, like just certain things like that, where we could utilize prior skills. But families loved those as well, because it meant they were getting the extras that you don't necessarily always get time to do. So
for sure, that's awesome. Yeah, that's great. I think that was awesome. And I guess moving into like, so the new role and stuff, what are you excited to kind of, obviously you haven't started, but I guess you know kind of what you're going to be doing. What are you excited to kind of some new stuff that you're seeing, that, you know, you're happy to get out to educators, some new, I guess, online programs that you're building or you're going to build? Have you thought about like what's exciting you for the next chapter?
I think it's just learning something new for me. So as much as I've been doing something similar, it's going to be completely new. Like, it's a new platform and everything. So there's lots for me to learn first. So
yeah, for sure.
I think I'm just looking forward to that opportunity for myself to grow my knowledge that way. And I'm not fully over like what that's going to look like yet. But looking forward to those opportunities to share it when it does happen. So
yeah, for sure. And so, because who's that with? Sorry, that's with the
Early Childhood Australia.
Okay, yep. And so is that will a lot of the Early Childhood Australia content, are they like online things? Are they like in-house? Like if an educator is like kind of wanting to, you know, learn a bit more, they probably know about it, but where can they find all this sort of information that's going to help them? Does it cost? Is it free? Like how does it all work?
So you can be a member of ECA, so you can pay for your membership, which is an annual subscription, which does get you access to some of it. Some of their learning content is free anyway, or you can pay per content as well. So if you find a pre-recorded learning module that you want to do, you can just pay for that one module, or they do webinars as well. So it just depends what you're after as to what's available and what the cost is. So they do try and make it, you know, different, that some do cost, some are obviously free. So yeah.
Yeah, no, it's awesome because I'll tag like the website and stuff. So on the when we release this, so people can kind of go to it and click and that sort of stuff. But it's always good to, as we said, upskill. Did you have anything like when we chatted like that you think that you kind of have been through, or that you'd think that would bring good, I guess, knowledge to, or good kind of value to people listening? Have you like anything that you've been through, either when back in the educating days or what you're doing now, that you could think like speak to a director or speak to an educator and say, hey, if we can do this or whatever it is that might bring value? It's a bit of a tough one.
Yeah. I think my biggest thing is about the relationship piece. So as a director, like, yes, you are the leader of the centre, and yes, you've got a huge amount of responsibility, but you have to listen to your team too. And there is plenty of amazing directors out there that do this already. But without your team, you can't provide your service. So you've got to look after your team, and then vice versa, as a team member, as an educator, like, you got to have that respect for your director, that sometimes their answer is going to be the answer. Like, it is what it is. We can give them the explanation. I think it's about working together. I think that's the biggest thing. I sort of see at the moment is like there's almost a bit of a disconnect. Everyone's so burnt out, but not understanding the stress levels of everyone. Like, we're noticing our own, but we're not going, well, hang on a minute, we're stressed out because, you know, there's 20, 30 children in the one room, and it feels like chaos. But actually, like, the centre director's under pressure as well. So, you know, they've got a huge amount. They're trying to help make sure that there is enough team. They're trying to build the occupancy. They're trying to provide a service. So I think we've just got to have that compassion for each other at the moment, and make sure we're looking after each other's well-being, because it's pretty low, I think. So everyone's got to look after each other.
Yeah. So I guess for that, just communication. So maybe, I don't know how you would set it up within a centre, but just having that open communication, and maybe, you know, as a director, I know you're super busy, but, you know, checking in with, maybe even, you know, scheduling a 10 to 15 minute chat with everyone in the centre over a couple of weeks, you know, touch base I don't know, I'm not sure how it actually works, but, you know, touch base every month or every 2 weeks or whatever, like whatever you can kind of, because I feel like obviously there's a lot of other things going on, but maybe this is, you know, potentially could be the most important thing, you know, building that relationship with your team, and, you know, actually knowing, you know, what they do, and what their outside hobbies are, if they like to, you know, watch the footy, or go for a drink of wine, and, you know, or whatever it is, go to an art show, or whatever it is. If you kind of build that relationship, you know, through these kind of, you can talk about work and stuff as well and where you're at, but also just kind of having a connection that's a little bit more than just work.
Definitely. And I think we always tried to do something like that as a team at the centre I worked at, was like try and do a catch up once a month. And it wasn't like everyone had to come. It was like, we're going to go have a meal on a Friday night. Those who want to come can come, those who don't.
Yeah, awesome.
Like, there's no like going to be any negativity that you didn't come along. Just gave those opportunities outside of work to build those connections, because you work with these people up to 38 hours a week. Like, you're almost with them more than your own family sometimes. So like, you have to, it does become more than just a professional relationship. You build friendships that last a lifetime. Like, I've got lots of educators that I always called, like, they were like my second mum. You know, I had like 3 mums in the one centre, but it was just wonderful because they looked after everyone. They made sure everyone was looked after. They noticed if someone wasn't feeling 100%, they would be the ones to be like, are you okay? What's going on? Like, I think we miss that sometimes, that we're so caught up in our own stuff.
For sure.
That we're not noticing others. So I always tried to spend time even in the like Teams room, so that when they're on their breaks, I was there. And I was like, I'm not here to pester you. I'm here to chat too. Like, I'm just as much part of the team as anybody else. So yes, I'm your leader, but I don't want to just be the leader that nobody wants to come talk to. And it started turning around sometimes. Some educators would willingly come sit in the office with me just to have the lunch break, because they'd be like, you look really stressed today. And they'd bring me a coffee, and I was like, oh, that's nice. It's just like day made with that. So I think, that relationship piece is just so crucial.
For sure. No, that's awesome. And I guess as like when you were a director and that sort of stuff, how did you go about because it's always like, I always hear, our directors and that sort of stuff talking about, building occupancy and that sort of thing. Did you have a kind of strategy in place? Like how would you, because obviously I guess the best way, not knowing, like not a director myself, but I guess building a connection with the community would probably be the best way to kind of, get the occupancy up. So how would any tips or advice or how you kind of built your occupancy whilst you were kind of leading that?
We obviously did marketing campaigns to try and get people in the door, but besides from that, just as a centre, we were quite lucky because we had a bit of a revolving door of us all having our babies at the same couple of years. So then we'd have our mums groups and we'd be like, well, we all work at this centre. So that really helped.
That was good. Not bad tactics. So.
But then we also had other members of the community, like we had police officers that came as a family. And then the next family at that police station then was like, well, we go to this centre, and then suddenly you have them all at the centre. So it was just building that connection that then furthered another connection. So just really having that positive word of mouth. Where the fact that we were a very well-established team, a lot of us had worked at the centre 10 plus years. So they knew that we were there long term, and there was no kind of, revolving door of team members coming and going. We always worked kind of in the same rooms as well. So they knew who looked after which children. Like there was no questioning who was looking after their child that day. And I think that really provided the security for families. I understood that a lot more when I had my own children. I was like, I totally get it now. Like we can say it, but until you have your own, it's completely different. So other educators played sports. So you get the whole sports team come through as well. So I think it was just that we were a small community to build those connections was a little bit easier, I'm going to say, and definitely harder if you're more like central city areas.
Yeah, for sure. I guess it'd have to be.
You're a bit more luckier to not have as many centres available as well. So it's just about being known in the community. So
for sure, I guess, and it is getting harder. Well, what I was going to say when you said having your own kid, because my son, he's one, he just turned one a month ago, and so we just put him into childcare this month, Jan, and kind of the knowing, I guess, that he's got the same educator, and he's being like loved and nurtured by well, obviously it's not the same. They might be sick and every so often, but knowing that they've had that same educator there for a while, and he's going to see that familiar face, like those drop offs. Like I've dropped him off the last 3 days, and it's kind of like, it's hard, but like knowing that it's the same person there every time, whatever. It makes it. It's never going to be easy, but it makes it easier.
I even have had, how sometimes children will call the educators mum. I put it the opposite way, where my son has called me the educator's name, and I'm like, I don't know whether to take that as a compliment or not, but
that's right.
It is quite lovely, because then I'm like, it just really shows that after being with that one educator for 2 years, the relationship was so strong. So
which is great, because we've all got to get to work and make some money so we can live this life. And no, it's good. I guess I feel like we've covered a lot of cool stuff, and I think it brought a lot of value. Do you have anything else before I guess we kind of finish up you wanted to chat about, or anything else that you like we've discussed that you could go into a little bit deeper, but it's honestly been, I think it's been a great, insightful chat for everyone listening.
Not that I can think of right now. Lots of topics go through my head, but obviously it's different to what we've talked about. So
yeah, well, that's actually, there's what I do at the end of each podcast. I asked the guest. I saw this once on another podcast I used to listen to. It was one, and I've kind of changed it for this podcast because the guests previously have said this. One is, who do you think would be good for this podcast? Like, who could bring value, and who do you know in the sector that would be good? But whoever you say, you have to try get them on for us. So that's like a little caveat to that. But then, so have a think about that. But the second one is, I guess, what topics and discussions do you think would be good? So one obviously that someone has let us know about, and I kind of thought about this as well, was just like, I guess, how can we try to get more males into the sector was obviously one, but something like that do you like, what would be a good discussion topic? Maybe as well.
I think inclusion at the moment is a really big thing. So sort of like how I said at the beginning, we're seeing lots of impacts from COVID, but I think we're seeing a growing awareness of parents recognizing that their child may have more complex needs and need that extra support. So there's a lot more diagnosis happening.
Yeah.
Some people are saying it's happening too easily and doctors are just giving it away. But I think it's just a recognition that as parents, we're noticing that they need that extra support, and they're not a typical developing child. They are atypical and have different neurological needs. So I think that's a big area that as educators, we're needing to understand more of now, because you're potentially having 5 or 6 children in a room on any given day that have a diagnosis.
Yeah.
So it's becoming challenging that way.
For sure. That's actually that'd be a very good discussion for, I guess, someone who's kind of in that and is like all like that's kind of their thing. It'd be good to hear what they have to say and how we can, I guess, as educators, that because that would be super tough having that sort of as an educator when you've got, because the ratio with the educators at the moment, is it in the older groups, is it 1 to 20, 1 to 15?
So every state's a little bit different.
Okay.
I think.
Yeah.
So for me in South Australia, we're a 1 to 10. Or 1 to 11, sorry.
Okay.
So we're 1 to 11 in South Australia.
Yeah.
I think New South Wales is potentially more
a little bit higher. So if you got, I guess, let's
22 children with 6 of those.
Yeah, for sure. So no, that's awesome. So because I like to write it down, and I can have it hopefully get someone on who could I guess bring that knowledge and that with that sort of topic. And any thoughts on that on the person? Because
I do. I'd like to think she'd be willing to do it. She was a previous leader. She's got her own consultancy company. Name's Michelle Walsh. So she does Michelle Walsh Hourglass Consultancy in South Australia. So lots of knowledge to share. Has been similar, like done all the roles as an educator in a centre, and now has her own consultancy company. So she would be amazing to hear about her experience and stuff like that.
Yeah, awesome. No, thank you. I'll look her up on LinkedIn and let her know. I might shoot her a message. But thank you so much for coming on. I think this was a great chat, and hopefully we've brought a lot of value. And I think any educators, directors that have listened, I think this will help a lot. So thank you so much.
Thanks so much for having me.
No worries. Have a good one.
Thanks, Shane. Bye.